Welcome back to Jake's Amp Garage, everyone. We're back with this Marshall Silver Jubilee. This is part 2 of that first video that has the presence control that wouldn't budge. This is the second job I'm doing where I have something that doesn't budge. The first one previous to this was the that Pt. 58 reissue, which had a guitar jack nut that wouldn't budge. We got that sorted out, and we'll get this sorted out. But before we get to this, I just want to give you my thoughts on this Silver Jubilee. This is the first one I've had in here. It looks like it's the first time it's ever been opened up. It came in from a recording studio in Melbourne. New owner brought it up to Sydney and wants me just to go through it real quick and to make a repair on it. It's a pretty simple repair. It's this Presence pot here. Shaft is snapped off. That's the whole budge thing that I'm going through again. I've got the pot here. No, not the pot. The control. You guys probably can't see that. The shaft snapped off inside the control knob, and the owner tried drilling it out, mangled it, so I got to order that as well. Obviously I have to order that too, but I'm going to take this off and measure it first to check its value. It's supposed to be a 22K pot, which is an unusual value for a pot, usually a 25K. That's why I want to measure it first. I can measure it on here, but I'm going to take it off anyway. I have to take it off anyway. But just to give my thoughts on this amp, very high quality, surprising, or not. It's supposed to be a Silver Jubilee, so it's supposed to be high quality. Well laid out, easy to work on. I mean, I have to pull this board out to get to this pot. Don't have to touch the main board, which is good to see. The wiring looks high quality. It's cloth covered wiring, which is, I mean, it looks nice or feels nice, but at least what I wish they would have done is had it color coded. It's hard to trace. I mean, there's not a huge amount of wiring. It is though a little bit difficult to trace when it's all the same color. You can see the wiring over here for the I don't know if you guys can see that off to the side, but it's blue and brown being active and blue being neutral for mains wiring here in Australia, and we got yellow and green for the earth. Just on the earth, I can see where the earth connection has been made to the chassis. They've actually cleaned off the powder coating and used a nylon lock nut, which is good to see. As they have here, they've cleaned off the powder coating and used because the pots are grounded. You need a bare metal to ground properly, which is good to see. Power resistors here are all up off the chassis or up off the board. They can do damage to the board when they're laid right up against the board. Carbon composition or carbon film resistors here. There's some metal ones here as well that are up off the chassis, off the board. Not a big fan of these SAMWAs. That's what these are. They're not exactly high quality caps. However, I do have test equipment which has SAMWAs in them, and they've lasted a long time, so they're working. But they could have used Nichicon or something like that, given this is a Silver Jubilee. What I also like here we have the diode rectifiers for the amp, and they've got snubber caps across each of the diodes, which reduces switching noise, which is good to see. And before anyone gets on me about sticking my fingers in here, yes, I did the capacitors are discharged. The amp has been sitting here for a little while, and I checked the voltages, and it's at 0. Here, output transformer is shielded, which is good to see. Not a big fan of these small 16mm pots. I wish they'd used the larger ones, but it is what it is. That's kind of nitpicking, really, but I prefer the other ones. They're a lot better. Well, not a lot better, but they are better. But this is a Silver Jubilee, so you would expect the best. So pots and caps, in my opinion, should be better. Over here, as you can see, that's the bias adjustment board. It's a separate board. Another plus. One other thing, for those of you who had an eagle eye in the first video, this, off the amp, on this edge, I believe it was here, these edges are super sharp. Well, not super sharp, but enough to slice your finger open, and that's what happened to me. And these corners here are very sharp. That's something that shouldn't be here. That's not whether it's a Jubilee or not. That's something that shouldn't happen. Now, it's not an issue for most people that aren't going to be opening up and working on these amps, but for any tech that actually isn't aware of it, you can slice your hand on this pretty badly. In terms of sound quality, I know this is subjective, I did fire this thing up, it sounds fantastic. I have seen comparisons of this up against the 800, and in my opinion, at least from what I could hear, I know computer speakers aren't that great, it does sound better and it's a little more versatile. So it is a step up. The video that I saw was a fellow that was doing the comparison of the Jubilee and the 800, and in his opinion too, the Jubilee is a step up. I'm going to link that video in the description. I hope you guys watch it. It's actually a well worth watching to hear the comparison of the two amps. But back to this one. What we're going to do now is I'm going to remove this pot. I'm going to desolder it and get it out of here. But to do that, I've got to take this board off. And it's good to see they've got separate boards for the pots and for all the jacks at the back. Don't have to touch the main board, which is awesome to see. Makes it way easier to service. This is a bonus for you guys. Anyone that owns an amp, it cuts down on labor costs, right? And I got quite a few jobs I got in the background right now that I want to get done. So the quicker I can get this one done, the better for me as well. So let's get to it. What we're going to do now is remove these pots, remove these knobs, and then we'll take the nuts off. I bet you none of the nuts are properly tight. That's just my thinking. I've seen enough amps to know they're not tight. Okay, where are we? Here we are. It's the old chrome socket set, which I've had since I was probably 18 years old. Oh, look at that. They're loose. At least they're loose according to me, to my what standards of what should be tight. This one's definitely not going to be tight. This is the plastic. This is the input jack. Okay, that one I'll give a pass on, given that it's you got this metal going into plastic. You wouldn't want to over tighten that anyway. But these ones could have definitely been a little more tighter. Remember, the pots have to be grounded. If they become loose, it's not a good thing. The other thing is, it provides mechanical support. You don't want the solder joints of the pots providing mechanical support. They will crack, and you get all sorts of noise and intermittent operation, right? Okay. But obviously I will tighten them up when I put everything back. Okay. But overall, I actually like this amp. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it's actually built. I like the design and layout. Like I said, there's a couple of negatives. But overall, yeah, this is a great amp. And I think it is a step up from the 800. Glad to see Marshall has actually done a good job on this. The other thing is, which I heard, is that Marshall is now using transformers made in Vietnam. Now, that's not to say those transformers aren't any good, but my understanding is that they've actually swapped out the transformers for the Vietnam-made transformers and used the same part numbers. Which, if that's true, that's kind of disingenuous. I wish they wouldn't do that. It is what it is. But this amp is a 2015. It has a diagonal made in the UK transformers. So, at least with this one, we're all good. Okay, let's disconnect these. I've already loosened these, so that's why they're coming off easy. This one here is a pain in the bum to get off. I'm not going to even, I've tried it. I don't want to try and fiddle around with it too much. I'm going to try and get this off out of here with this one connected. These connectors are not easy to get off, especially this one because it's so big and the placement of the tab down the bottom. So let's get this off. This one, bend it that way, and then. Okay, I might have to stand up here. There we go. All right. Pretty painless. Would have rather preferred to get this other connector off. Oh, lost the washer there. It's off the input jack. Now, let's have a look. This is the culprit here, which There's not enough to grab on there to even try turning it with a pair of pliers, so I'm not going to even bother. Okay. So, what we are going to do now is unsolder this. Actually, I might even measure it, see what we come up with here. Like I said, I was told that it's a 22K. Let's see what it is. Actually, wait a minute. It's not even measuring. That's odd. I think this pot is gone. It says we got 1K there. That's a bit. That's 1K, huh? See, 22K is what it says, but we're only measuring 1K. Well, there's a reason why it's not turning. There's a reason why it's not measuring correctly. I've determined that it's faulty. That's why they pay me the big bucks. Okay. So let's fire up our soldering iron here. Where is this disconnected? Okay, where are we here? That's better. Okay, I'm going to move this across. Maybe you guys can get a better view of it. Okay. Okay, this is the pot here in question. I'm going to undo that. Okay. Well, that's a bummer, right? I thought it would have been just, well, not that it's a bummer, but we're going to replace the pot anyway, but I thought it would have been just a mechanical problem, but it looks like it's an electrical problem here is of this pot. So, let's turn this on. Should have been on already, but anyway. Won't take too long for it to warm up. What we might do is go to a break, and then I'll come back when this iron is warmed up, and we'll take this pot out. Welcome back, part two to part two, something like that. I got the soldering iron all now nice and warm and cozy, hot and cozy. We're going to desolder this pot and place an order, get that ordered, get your pot ordered, get the knob ordered. Probably take 2 or 3 weeks to get here. I think I already mentioned, or maybe I didn't, that nobody in Australia has this. It's a 22K pot. That's definitely nice and hot. And what I'm going to do now is try my new Goot desoldering sucker. This is massive. I have a desoldering iron station, which is faulty at the moment. Look at the size difference. This is the El Chupo version here, which actually still works alright. Look at the Goot. The Goot's a monster. That's what happens when you get on steroids. So let's get this pot off, and then I'll take another measurement. I'm going to crank up the temperature on this a little bit because it is a pot. It has a little more thermal mass than, say, a resistor or a capacitor because of all the metal on it. And then we'll measure it. And then I'll have my fan over here with a foot pedal down the bottom. You guys can hear that? Yeah. And then we'll desolder. Let's get this done. It's not quite warm yet. It should be warm. What are we at? We're at 400. Should be warm enough. Come off, but you know, I'm going to put my glasses on. One, I can see better, and two, it actually protects my eyes. I'm going to tell you something, it has actually sucked off quite a bit. That is surprising. Wow. There we go. Just going to do this one here. Heat that up. Wow. What an animal. This thing's an animal. Later on I'm going to use some desoldering braid and I'll clean up these copper pads. Wow. Holy guacamole. That is just insane. Now, I have to go over that one more time. That's insane how much of it gets off. Oh. Definitely does a better job than that other one. It's insane how good that is. Let's do this one middle one more time. Oh. Okay. This here. Oh, there we go. I'm going to release this here. Let's see something here. Okay. Yeah, they're all moving, but it's not coming out for some reason. Okay, so you know what we're going to do? I'm going to work on getting this out, so I don't bore you to death. I'll take these off. And then I'll measure it, and then we'll have to wait for the part to come in. It should be the pod and the control knob. I'll install them. Well, I'll video that when I do the install. That'll be part 3, and I think that'll do it. And then in part 3, I'll also do the test of the EQ controls or the tone stack. I'll show you how I do that. But like I said, I need the presence control to be off, as well as anything else. When I do the tone stack. So we'll cut the video there, and then the next video that you see will be part 3, which will be the video of the install of the pod and the testing of the amp. And if I can get the 4x12 cab in here, this is a little bit stuffed, this place, I'll do a sound sample so you guys can hear this. Okay, that'll be it for this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. So long, bye bye. And we're back. As luck would have it, within a minute or so of turning the camera off, that pot came off. Well, I got the pins out. So my mistake, that was a double-sided through-hole plated board. I was so focused in on what was happening underneath that pot that I thought it was single-sided because there was almost no solder on the top side. I think that insane Goot solder sock had sucked most of the solder, if there was any, on the off a couple of those pins, and there was only one left that had a little bit of solder. But anyway, I got it off within a minute or so, and the way I did it is to cut the pins off. I got the pot off, and then you take a conical shaped solder tip like this, which for the most part are pretty much useless. You put that on your soldering iron, and I would not recommend using a $10 soldering iron to do this. It has to be a soldering station, otherwise you're going to damage the pads. You then put this up against the pins, solder suck on the other side, and it pop right out. But anyway, what I thought I'd show you guys, after I got the pot out, I put some measurements, and this is what we came up with. Now, remember, while it was on the board, I measured 1K from side to side. However, when we put it here, we get 22.2K. So it actually is a 22K pot. But now, what we get when we measure from wiper to each side, on one side, we get 1.1K, which is roughly what we measured while it was on the board. So what should we get on the other K? It should be 22.2 minus 1.1K. Now there's going to be some tolerance in this, but not a lot. It's essentially dividing the voltage, so we should get 21.1K. But what are we going to get? We're going to get 21.6. There's 500 ohms missing. No, 21. There's what do we say? 21.1. There's 500 ohms missing there. Okay, well, not missing. There's too much of it. Now there is some tolerance in this, but not that much. I'm just going to demonstrate this with a. Where are we? Just a second. I'm going to demonstrate how this works with this. These are wire wound variable load resistors that I use for testing power supplies, and they simulate the load of a valve circuit or a valve amplifier. This is usually for the power stage. Well, not usually, it is for the power stage. This is for your preamp stages. It helps me to test the power supplies without connecting up the valves to it. So this one here, and I wanted to use something that was close as possible to the value of that pot, which is 22K, and a kind of unusual value. So this one here measures from side to side, 19.5K. Now, when we take the measurements from wiper to each side, they should add up to 19.5K, or be very close. What do we got here? We have 5.8K, and on this one, so it's early in the morning, so I've got to use my calculator. 19.5 minus 5.8, 13.7. That's what we should get, or very close to this side. We get 13.6. That's what you would expect, or very close to it. So that pot over there had 1.1K on one side, but it should have had 21 point, was it, we said 22.2? 21.1K on the other side. We didn't get that, we got 21.6. It was an extra 500 ohms, so I'm not sure if the fact that the pot was jammed physically contributed to the problems electrically. But either way, I ordered another pot and another knob, which should be here in about 2 or 3 weeks. 3 weeks worst case scenario is what I was told, and then I'll get them installed. And I'll show you guys how I test the EQ, the tone stack as well, which I like to do while all the other controls are set to 0. We couldn't do that because that presence control was jammed and it wouldn't budge. Okay, so I thought I'd just give you this little bit of an update video as an amendment to part 2. When I get the stuff in, it'll be part 3, and I think that'll be the last part for this video. And hopefully, I'll give you guys some sound samples, because I think this Marshall amp sounds absolutely fantastic, and it's a step up from the 800. But that's all, of course, subjective. Certainly in terms of quality, it's very, very good. Okay, I think that wraps it up for this end of part 2. And thanks for watching. I hope to see you guys on the next one. So long. Bye-bye.